Welcome into the Dirty O IDP Underdogs, hosted by the IDP guys. We are ready to go. It is week 18. The NFL season is coming to an end, but you can still make some money and still have fun this weekend. Gary, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. How about you, brother?
I'm doing well, man. I just got done with a beast of an article looking at all these games, trying to figure out who's actually playing this weekend, what games matter, and seeing what we can do to help these guys make some money.
Hell yeah, I hear you, brother. That's the main thing is you got to kind of nitpick a little bit here. It's a little tough, man, but let's roll. Let's roll.
Yeah, so let's start off with the first game of the week. We got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and Baltimore is already locked up the number one seed. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, is playing for their playoff lives. Mason Rudolph is the starter, and I'm going to go with some alternate yards because they're pretty low on what they're expecting from Mason Rudolph this weekend. I'm taking the plus 115 for him to go 200 plus against Baltimore. They've already announced that most of their starters are not playing. Lamar Jackson's out. Kevin Zeitler's out. Odell Beckham Jr. is out. We know Kyle Hamilton's not expected to play. There's other key starters that are possibly out. Zay Flowers is doubtful. And again, Pittsburgh is like they are win it, and that doesn't mean they're in, but win it and they control their own destiny. So I'm going to go with 200 plus for Mason Rudolph. He's been playing really well, especially with George Pickens, and it just takes one or two big plays to get over this mark here. So, what are your thoughts about that, and what are your thoughts about Rashan Gary?
Well, I'll tell you what, man. We kind of blew my mind. It was like you was reading my mind because I was sitting here wondering how I could go with Rashan Gary and Preston Smith. If we were all alternating, I wouldn't be able to do that. But as you can see, with Gary, I am going over a half or over a quarter of his sack at negative 115 versus the Bears. The Bears are still top 10 matchup off the edge, have been all year. They are actually currently top 5 at the moment, allowing production. Gary is elite light graded right now. I believe it was around an 80. And he will be bringing his A game in this divisional matchup for the last part of the season. You can imagine there's got to be incentives, which is also going to lead me into going with my second IDP of the round with Packers Preston Smith with over 0.25 sacks plus at plus 100 versus the Bears. Again, top 5. Now, I know that Preston Smith didn't get his sack the last time these two teams just met, but that's all right. He's been the more consistent dude, and that was one of his rare misses when the matchup is right. And I am not concerned with there being plenty to go around because in the last 5 contests, 4 of them, Fields has been sacked 3 times. So we're going to go with Packers Rashan Gary over quarter of a sack at negative 115. And we're also going to go with Packers Preston Smith over a quarter of a sack at plus 100, both versus the Bears.
Yeah, Justin Fields, he definitely holds the ball as great as he is on the ground rushing. He also holds the ball and takes a lot of sacks, and we've seen that throughout his career. And that Green Bay defensive front should be able to have a nice game. They got a very per PFF. They have one of the better matchups this weekend as far as the D line versus O line DVOA.
Did you notice how I just rolled right past that thought? You asking me my thought on some dirty O with Mason?
Well, I mean, we also we got a typo here. Auto corrected to Nicole Collins, and so Nico Collins, not Nicole Collins. Do not bet on Nicole Collins again over 5.5 receptions. But please take the Nico Collins over 5.5. Last week, they had it down to 59.5 receiving yards. We told you guys that number was way too low. Last week, 7 receptions, 80 yards. And that's a pretty modest game for what we've seen over Nico when Noah Brown is out. Noah Brown is out this weekend. They got the Colts. I know the Texans are out of it, and the Colts are playing for their playoff lives, but they have no reason to tank. They've given the Arizona Cardinals their first round pick, and this team has been playing great, and there's been a lot of points at Lucas Oil. So 5.5 receptions, I think, is a very low number, very achievable. And if you want to go with the alternative, take it to 6.5. I'd be comfortable with that. But I'm going to go over 5.5 receptions for Nico, not Nicole Collins.
Yeah. Anybody that watches the Underdogs and knows that I have anything to do with it, they get used to this, Dave. You know that, brother. All right, so let's skip on over with the Vikings. Ivan Pace Jr. All right, this inside linebacker has had an opportunity after Jordan Hicks got hurt earlier in the season. I think it was probably about mid-season. Prior to that, he actually started out a little bit hot, and then they dwindled away his snap count. So I'm liking this under, which I do very rarely, but I believe I hit on one last week. It's with the Vikings, Ivan Pace, under 8.5 tackles and assists. So combined tackles at plus 110 at the Lions. For one, the Lions are down on the totem pole when it comes to allowing production to the linebackers, for one thing. And I do realize that Ivan Pace has some good games in him, but the major thing that I'm looking at here is Jordan Hicks is back. It's his second or third full game. He also happens to be auditioning because he's a free agent in 2024. So he's either wanting to leave a good impression in this divisional matchup that they could upset the Lions here, go walking out the door. But he's trying to get a job either with Minnesota again next year or somewhere else. He's still got a couple good years left in him. And he had just had 9 combined against the Lions just 2 weeks ago, where Pace actually, he only played 40% of the snaps that contest. I believe it's due to scheming, because I've noticed over tracking this for the entire season that seems to be a trend versus the Lions, because they just have not allowed that production. They don't have much of a running game, if I'm correct, sir. So I have no problems thinking that he's not going to get his full share at 8.5. That's 9 tackles to bet on. I think Jordan Hicks is going to come in and kind of repeat his 9 combined from last time. And it wouldn't surprise me if Ivan Pace only played that 40% or 50% of the snaps again, based on scheming, and probably only repeating that 4 combined or 5 combined that he had. So give me Ivan Pace under 8.5 tackles and assists at plus 100 at the Lions.
Yeah, and this is a Minnesota Minnesota defensive backfield that's got Harrison Smith. Cameron Bynum leads the cornerback position with tackles, and they have Byron Murphy over there as well. It's a busy group, and it's from the linebacker position, like you said, Pace gets Hicks back, and the Lions are a good running team, but they've also been passing the ball quite a bit, and Minnesota is one of the worst pass defenses, and expect them to attack the pass. Justin Jefferson over 6.5 receptions for me. He's had a great year when he's been healthy. Unfortunately, he's missed a lot of games. And Nick Mullins, we saw last week when he came in there immediately, first thing, 15-yard pass to Jefferson. Right now the odds for Nick Mullins interceptions is 1.5. They won't even give you the half. They're expecting at least 1, and so. He's going to chuck it. The YOLO ball will be, probably not great for Vikings fans, but Justin Jefferson will get his. Expect 10-plus targets, 7-plus receptions, and, 6.5 receptions is easy. So give me that for Justin Jefferson all day.
Nice. Before I go on and talk about my next guy, I do want to mention next week we got a little bit of programming changing, and Dave is inheriting a new co-host, Axton Harding. You might know him from the Dirty O IDP Throwdown fantasy football game show type content that we had going on YouTube for the IDP guys the last few weeks. It just ended because of the championships in week 17. But next week he is switching me out, and he's going to be joining Dave and taking care of the IDP part of that. So make sure you check that out. He has been on a hot ass roll if you haven't checked out his shorts and other content lately. He's doing really well. So, all right. So we're going to stick in this matchup versus the Lions. We're going to go with the Vikings safety Josh Metellus over 6.5 tackles and assists at plus 120 at the Lions. That's total tackles or combined tackles. Is kind of interesting how they've worked for the last 5 weeks. They are actually number one in allowing production to the safeties on paper for the last 5 weeks. And that reflects back again on why I am not liking Ivan Pace as a linebacker play so much as a top end ceiling. So anyway, Vikings, I'm mixing up my footballs, ain't I? Vikings, Josh Metellus over 6.5 tackles and assists is not a big deal. I believe the last time these two teams played again, just 2 weeks ago in Minnesota, right, with the weather, he had 10 combined versus the Lions in week 16. I don't have any problems thinking that he's going to be able to repeat that again this week in a dome in Detroit. So let's roll with Vikings, Josh Metellus over 6.5 tackles and assists at plus 120 at the line.
Yeah, the offense, we talk about Taysom Hill playing all the positions on the field. Josh Metellus does that. I got a stat back from December 11th. This guy played strong safety, free safety, left corner, right corner, slot corner, left inside linebacker, right inside, middle linebacker, left outside, right defensive end, and left defensive tackle so far this year. That's 12 different positions, and there's only 11 guys. And so this guy is literally playing everywhere. He does not come off the field, and he's an absolute he's a ball hawk. So I love the call there with Metellus. And I'm going to go with Josh Allen. I'm going to quote Steve Smith, big time players play big in big games. And Josh Allen is a big time player. This guy was a Pro Bowl snub, and his team needs him to will them into the playoffs. Miami's banged up. They just lost Bradley Chubb. They don't have Jalen Phillips as well. Josh Allen, anytime touchdown. It's going to be whether it's a rushing touchdown or a receiving touchdown. I'm going to go with a rushing touchdown most likely. He's had 15 touchdowns this year on the ground.
Man.
He's a beast. He's a quarterback. 15 rushing touchdowns. The only other quarterback is Jalen Hurts with 15. The next guy is 6. Anytime touchdown, book it.
Oh, yeah, I love that one, man. That's going to be I'm looking forward to the Buffalo Miami game, at least defensively. So let's roll after I snort there for everybody. Let's go with Saints, Pete Werner, over 4.5 solo tackles at plus 130 versus the Falcons. All right, this is another one of those situations where just like this is another one of those situations where I am picking on a linebacker that is actually a coverage linebacker because the Falcons allow a lot more in the secondary, especially to the safety area, or in the box in coverage. And that is Pete Werner's sweet spot. He plays opposite of Demarius Davis, and I'm sure that is also a reason they'd be avoiding Davis and heading for Werner if they have to target one, because believe it or not, everybody that's a Werner fan, dude's well under par graded with PFF. He's not having the best year on film. He's getting productive by default. The one thing about Werner, has a knack to overproduce when the matchups are solid or less, believe it or not, because that would mean if they're if not in favor of the inside linebackers, again, usually all the production is going to the secondary, which then Werner comes into play as the coverage linebacker. Let's see. Also has a knack of recording for plenty of solos when it comes to divisional games. Has had 2 games recently with 5 or more solos, both against rival teams, including the Falcons and Buccaneers last week, with 7 against the Falcons and 8 coming out of Tampa Bay. I have no problem thinking in this tight division race where it really matters who's going to win. The Saints at home, I'm going to go Pete Werner over 4.5 solo tackles, no problem at plus 130 versus the Falcons.
Yeah, no, I love that. The way that the Falcons deploy their offense, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, and they pass a lot to the tight ends. So you're going to see, a lot of stuff over the middle of the field, whether it's on the ground or through the air. So I like that a lot. And I think we picked some winners. Do you want to recap? You want to go to the underdog?
Let's give him a quick recap, brother.
All right, we're going to go Rashan Gary over 0.25 sacks against the Bears, negative 115 odds. Mason Rudolph, alternate passing over 200, plus 115 versus Baltimore. They got half their secondaries questionable due to illness, and the other half are resting. Packers, Preston Smith over 0.25 sack, plus 100 odds versus the Bears. Nico Collins over 5.5 receptions against the Colts. Vikings, Ivan Pace under 8.5 tackles and assists, plus 110 at Lions. Justin Jefferson over 6.5 receptions, minus 115 odds at Atlanta at the Lions. We got staying with the Vikings game, over 6.5 for Josh Metellus, plus 120. That's tackles and assists, over 6.5 tackles and assists, plus 120 at Lions. And then a Josh Allen, Buffalo Josh Allen, anytime touchdown, negative 135 odds at Miami, followed by Saints. Pete Werner over 4.5 solo tackles, plus 130 odds versus the Atlanta Falcons.
No. Ooh. We got Mike Evans there.
And let's not forget about Mike Evans. Tampa Bay has put themselves in a position where if they win the division and they go to the playoffs. They will be the 4 seed. And they get Carolina. If you could have asked for anybody, I want to play this person this week, it would have been Carolina. And Mike Evans gets a juicy matchup against that Carolina secondary. He scores touchdowns. That's what Mike Evans does. Baker Mayfield's been great. It's kind of a little revenge game for Baker Mayfield. If you don't forget, he was the Carolina Panthers starting quarterback last year. Dave Canales going to be a head coach next year probably. Tampa Bay's offense is rolling. They can run, they can pass, and that creates play action for Mike Evans. Big-time touchdowns. Mike Evans, anytime TD, negative 1.5. Book it.
Oh, yeah. Rock and roll with the pick'ems.
All right, let's
Parlay.
talk about some Underdog Pick'ems. If you aren't playing already, then you need to. Just stop what you're doing, pause the show, go download Underdog Fantasy. It's awesome, and you can get in on these Pick'ems. All you do is you take a player's stat, you pick higher or lower. So for us, Tyler Allgeier, higher. It's higher than 1.5 receiving yards at the Saints. And Underdog will even give you what his recent numbers were. And so the last 3 games, he has 1 catch for 6 yards, 1 catch for 19 yards, and 1 catch for 75 yards. So 1.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take that against the Saints. Tyler Allgeier higher than 1.5 receiving yards at Saints for my first leg.
Nice. And I don't want to seem like I'm whining, but I do a lot when IDP seems to be the stepchild of underdogs in DraftKings, especially early in the week or this time of the week when we're trying to get some good lines out of there. So I'm just sticking with my confidence here, considering if you guys had caught the first edition with me and Sebastian, yeah, I had been talking about DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye. I wanted to put Buckner on here at plus 1.25x. A little spicy there, but unfortunately, when I went in to check this time, I couldn't because neither Paye or him are listed on underdogs at the very second that I was doing this. So I'm going to go with my confidence here off of today's prop bets picks with my first one with Vikings, Josh Metellus, higher than 6 tackles and assists at Lions for the same exact reason that I thought that he was going to have 6.5 when it comes to the prop bets. So there's going to be plenty of production in this situation. He's a beast. Dave brought it up on how versatile he is used on this field. And he's exactly why Harrison Smith is not been Harrison Smith. It's not because Harrison Smith has lost a step. If you still watch him, he's still there. But why in the hell would you put Harrison Smith in harm's way when you got Josh Metellus flying all over the place, making the plays?
Again, I'm going with Mason Rudolph. Baltimore, I mean, Odell Beckham has already purchased the yacht. They're thinking about, their festivities, I guess, their playoffs. They got the bye week, and they're resting almost all their starters this week. They have several defensive backs that are questionable. And from what I know, the Steelers are starting everybody because they have to win this game. And Mason Rudolph, 188.5. In his last two games as the starter, 290 and 274. And that's on 24 and 27 passing attempts. So for him to get 200 yards, like I said earlier, I think it's a lock. And so they give you 188.5. Baltimore is usually a tough defense. With all these players out, no Kyle Hamilton, no Marlon Humphrey, you're looking at a much different team. And so, and you're also looking at, Baltimore resting a bunch of their offensive players as well.
Well, we're going to end this with a nice little typo where I copied and pasted from one to the other to get the names going and keep it going. So disregard the plus 130 here, folks. All right, with Saints Pete Werner higher than 4 solo tackles versus the Falcons. Again, we're looking at mass production in the last 2 games that he's played, that he's reached higher than 5 or higher than 4, has been against 2 divisional rivals in the last couple of weeks. I have no problem thinking the same thing with Metellus, that the productions here, he's going to probably end up close to 8 to 9 combined tackles and 4 solos. Hey, 5 is on his way. So let's go with Saints with Pete Werner higher than 4 solo tackles versus the Falcons.
Yeah, and if you want to get a 5th one in there, I got Josh Allen higher than 21.25 fantasy points. Like I said earlier, I think he gets at least 1 through the ground. Big game day. Gabe Davis could be out there. Stephon Diggs. I mean, they're going to do what they can against the Miami defense. And last time they played, Bills 38, Miami 20. Josh Allen had a monster fantasy day. Expect him to do the same thing. A lot of stuff on the ground and an aggressive Buffalo Bills. 21.25 fantasy points. Yeah, I think he gets that easy.
Nice.
So if we have a little time, Gary, I'd like to talk about a few incentives that our listeners can maybe cash in on.
Yes, sir.
So
and then we'll close her with them because, hey, folks, I'm getting ready to bounce off here and go record with Johnny the Greek and bring you some team lines tomorrow morning too. So make sure you watch for that after you check this out.
Chris Jones needs 0.5 sacks to earn $1.25 million. The Chargers have the 25th ranked offensive line. Austin Eckler needs 110 total yards in cash to cash in 100K. DeAndre Hopkins needs 49 yards for $1 million, 7 catches to cash $250. So if he gets 7 catches or 8 catches and 7 catches and 49 yards, that's 1.25 mil. 500K if he gets 75% of the snaps. He's currently played 72. Tyreek Hill needs 248 yards to set the record. That's tough, but he needs it. Geno Smith playing a lot this weekend. A $2 million bonus if the Seahawks secure a playoff spot. $2 million, that's a lot. Dalton Schultz needs 4 catches to earn $250K. Jordan Love, he gets $500K if the Packers win and make the playoffs, and $500K for every playoff win. Levante David needs 0.5 sacks, gets $150K. Panthers O-line is 27th. Devin Singletary needs 165 to earn 125K. What'd you say, Gary?
Nothing. Snickered.
And the Colts got the 24th ranked defense. Jadeveon Clowney needs 0.5 sacks to earn $750K. 31st Steelers have the 31st ranked pass blocking unit. He had 1 pressure week 5. Alexander Madison needs 124 rushing yards for $650K. Falcons defenders, Calais Campbell needs 2.5 sacks for $500K. Bud Dupree needs 1.5 sacks for $1 million. And I think some bonus ones that this is from Sal Vitri, DFS. And if you look, 74 yards will cash $250K for Alexander Madison, and 74 total yards would get 125K or 125K for Devin Singletary.
Nice.
We've seen it. We've all seen the Rob Gronkowski video where he says one more catch and I get X amount of dollars, and Brady throws it to him and he leaves the game. So, all right. Well, hope everyone enjoyed the show. Make sure you sub. Make sure you put in these props and go win some money.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.